Hello, my name is Layla. I had the starter post for Sense of Self. I wanted to start out with how we form our sense of self and our identity. First, our identity is the person's self-definition of the individual as a separate and distinct individual, including behaviors and beliefs and attitudes. I just wanted to say this: developing our sense of self involves many people within our ecological system, so teachers, peers, families, a lot of the important people in our lives. I also wanted to point out that the U.S. is known for the transition to adulthood to be painful and psychologically challenging, and this also varies across other cultures, just as many other things that we have learned up until this point. And then the next question is, how does our sense of self change across the lifespan? It's interesting because infancy is, you don't really have a sense of self. You basically just have a temperament. Easy child, difficult child, and slow to warm up child. So these are really it's not really something you can talk about with infancy. But with childhood, that's when it actually really emerges. It's partially due to the development of language, which is interesting because that's when you learn to describe yourself. You learn all these new words and how to distinguish yourself from someone else. And then in adolescence, this is when you form your own identity, social identity, and this is when a lot of Americans find it very hard. And then in adulthood, they say it's a period of stability and change, which I'll get into in the next question, which is what aspects of personality are stable and which change. Adults, as they grow older, they become more agreeable, more conscientious, and more emotionally stable, but they tend to be less extroverted and less open to new experiences. And then our sense of self has to do a lot with our interactions in our culture. For one, our interactions, especially with collectivist cultures, it's defined through your relationships with other people and how you interact with them. And that's really important for places like China and India and Japan, which I'm going to talk about a little bit next. All three of those are collectivist cultures. In Japan specifically, they look at the sense of self as an inner and outer. So their inner self is much more private, and their outer is what other people see, which is really interesting. And then China has a little bit of a different take on it. They look at it as yin and yang. Yin is weak, passive, and destructive, and yang is active, strong, and constructive. Then there's also 5 agents: wood, water, metal, fire, and earth. And these correspond to physical and temperamental characteristics. And in China, for Confucianism, that's what they tend to follow. There should be a balance of these forces, and there should also be a dedication to family, and this again brings in the collectivist attitudes. In India, the most important part of their sense of self is the righteousness and faithful duty or code of conduct. They also really believe in karma, and basically whatever you do, you will have whatever that consequence is, whether it's good or bad or indifferent. And then in India, you're also defined by your social relationships, which is also a collectivist attitude. So I thought all of this was really interesting. The different countries, it was interesting to see that they compared the 3 collectivist cultures. I thought it would be kind of cool if they had shown some of the individual cultures as well, or the individualist cultures. However, it was still interesting to learn how other countries and cultures think about the sense of self and how different it is from the United States. Thank you.